Hello, this is Elijah Ignatieff of the School of Conscious Communication, and I'm here with Yogi Shambu, who has a huge knowledge field ranging from sex to politics and everything in between. And I want to talk to you right now about a certain individual that is having a huge impact on our planet right now, and there's so many people that are getting flared up one way or the other about the president to the South, Mr. Trump. What are your thoughts on this man and what is happening down there? Do you have any?
I see Trump as a great manifestation of inner parts of ourself, inner parts of our heart that have not been addressed or allowed to evolve at the rate in which many other parts of our mind are. We do have a liberal part of our mind. We do have a progressive part of our mind. But typical in human evolution is we take the best part of ourself, put it forward, and then insist that the surface look of who we are, of our society and personally, is going to be what's seen. And the other slower, more reactive, more guttural parts of ourselves are going to be pushed to the wayside or pushed down. And so I see this as a manifestation of, in fact, a very honest time. It's a very honest time because it's forcing us to really take a look at where are people within this demographic where we are actually not working as much as we want to. Do you find that? I want to ask you, do you see Americans working at what they want to, and how their state of employment or unemployment, where their job possibilities are, how it might plug into Trump and this whole phenomenon?
Well, I don't know if I see it quite the same way. A lot of people sort of look at the man and then they're doing an assessment of sort of character in many ways, and they use this as an assessment of him. But what I see happening since he's gotten into office is kind of strange, because sometimes, let's say, good things can come out of bad things or bad things can come out of good things. But as soon as you get a rebel, let's say a true rebel, let's say in a position of power, where maybe there has not been such a rebel since JFK, meaning I just get the sense, because of who he is, that he's not quite in the cabal. He's not quite part of the deep state. He's not quite part of the Illuminati groups or whatever are the real power people behind the Western governments. And so he, through great strategy, through, becoming allies with him, he's got there, but he's not quite the puppet. He may be in some ways, or he just has different philosophies. I mean, he may be horrible on the environment. He may be horrible towards women, who knows? But he may be bringing up the fact that there's chemtrails. He may be bringing up the fact that, there's a link between autism and vaccines. And these are usually topics which are never brought up. And so he seems to be even bringing up, child trafficking. And I don't know, because there's so much character assassination against him in general. But it's like that media machine that usually sort of promotes things is now being used against him, because he's not on their side completely. And so they want him out. They want him done, because he is such a threat. So I just put that back on you of I don't know, maybe that's the body's immune system sticking some weird anomaly somewhere that no one would have thought would be doing what is happening, but something is occurring.
Well, it's a very raw channel. And with that raw channel, you have like a raw river coming through. You have everything. It seems quite unfettered. He doesn't have a lot of editing that goes on beforehand, so it seems. And so he has a very broad swatch of expression. And you have so many different phenomena of life that comes through his talking points, because he's very much a phenomena-based person. Whatever really sticks in the mind of people for a moment, that is what he will speak to oftentimes. He's either trying to generate or capitalize on that. What worries me, or what I'm aware of, is the people that he is aligned with. His appointments are not outside of the establishment. It's not, we're not talking about a Castro that was affiliated with Che, where, yes, there was an actual rebellion going on. Yes, he has a free radical type personality where he will be himself regardless of what's happening. But he is very much influenced, and people say, oh, he's so free, and he marketed himself as someone who is outside of influence. But I do see him consistently aligning with people that he wants to do business with, and do business in such a way that is very cavalier. It's very open-ended. It's very much the open market has the intelligence to govern itself, and going forward is the number one agenda for him, without a lot of actual sober assessment. Do you find that? What do you find?
Well, I don't think I'm informed enough to really have a good enough opinion on him. I not track American politics except through kind of Facebook stream stuff, and you get a wide, sporadic, could be anything. But the time to do the research, the time to truly understand, the appointments and everyone involved. I think I have a keen interest in, again, a sense that he is going to drive things to a point of such polarity, and he already has, that so much is going to occur while he's there, one way or the other. And I think the people are waking up. Like, it's just like the women are waking up. All the different groups are waking up. And everyone is starting to sort of, they've been pushed through so many different horrible things. And now this has put them over the limit. And that, again, is catalyzed through what he's doing. So, I mean, at some point, you really start to see, again, positive things coming from negative outcomes. And a lot of, negative outcomes coming from positive things. So, get a good job, you get really rich, and then you eat very badly, and then you have a heart attack and you die.
I really agree with that point. I have felt that our culture is numb, and it's been systematically numbed through a lack of work. And I mean work that the work of doing what your life entails you to do directly. And so our modern society numbs us out because we do more and more intellectual work and less physical work. We have more and more being done for us, and it is apart from us. Even our city's policies of how to deal with waste is outside of our hands, and yet it's coming from our bodies. And so we've had that go on for so long that we really are in a state of numbness. And it takes something absurd. It takes something grand, a grand trump card, if you will, to override all of our feelings of, it's okay, that person will deal with it. And that is what I'm hoping as well, is that the silver lining in this is going to be that he will push things to the point, and so absurdly, with so obtuse, that people will say, that is not right. I feel that this is not something that I can stand for. And even if they hadn't gone to a town hall meeting, in ever, they're going to stand up and say, this is actually something that is strong enough. And every story has this as a part of its storyline, is that there's something strong and absurd enough, something horrible or audacious enough, that we stand up as a mass and say, we're going to face the discomfort of going through the rebellion. going through, as Noam Chomsky said, the cycle of anarchy, where we start breaking down the cogs in the wheel so that we can actually create a new cycle. And yeah.
Well, I guess I look at the other side. Not that I guess there's two sides, sort of pro-Trump, and let's say the other side of not so pro-Trump. And the pro-Trump side is building momentum in a way, because it's like, I remember seeing something in France, and they had this parade, and they had, you know, the Statue of Liberty bent over and Trump behind in a very lewd look. And as soon as I saw it, something in me went, you know, this isn't a good thing to do with Americans. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people that are going to, as you insult and criticize and make things worse, they will form behind and support if he's actually doing good things. If he's actually doing things that he said he was going to do in a way that no other politician has ever done, no matter how much you like him or not. There's like, the American people are so sick and tired of politics, and they're so sick and tired of all their leaders they've ever had. And now, what happens if there's one guy who gets in, who again isn't quite under the cabal spell? And that's what I think the New World Order is going down. I think all across the world, whether it's the Russians or the Chinese or every other major power base, they all know about sort of like that Rothschild secret cabal, and everyone hates them. Everyone knows they exist. No one's been able to do anything until now, but now it's like all these dogs biting at a big lion. You know, the lion now is getting weak, and it's starting to die, and the dogs are just starting to see it going, and so the dogs are getting more challenging. And I think that, like, the refugee crisis in Europe is such a powder keg. I mean, we don't know how bad it is here in Canada. We have no idea of how bad it is in other parts of the planet. We turn on our taps, and we have our water, and we have our little coffees and our beers, but we're pretty safe here, you know, unless you're First Nations or something like that, because then you're under the same oppressive system that systematically has been attacking everyone around the planet for thousands of years, and now the internet is just playing it to us. Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
Just do a little research.
And it seems that the media has changed its stance, or it realizes that reporting the downfall of society is probably going to get more ratings than just playing the propaganda of the system. And yes, there's still propaganda, of course, that goes on within the media, absolutely. But you're starting to see in these radical times people making split-second decisions that are actually fundamentally changing what they do. And I do see that with the media, where media is making a decision. Okay, so am I going to be more spontaneous or more real with this? Am I going to actually voice the air in the room? The air in the room right now is highly charged with unpredictability, and definitely Trump is giving that opportunity to really show the unpredictableness and to show that something is going down. We needed a player that was very polarizing. I mean, it could have been Bernie Sanders, you know, who would have given us someone that was equally outside of, and even more so outside of, the reaches of the rich. But we didn't have a confidence in that. We felt that, you know, we wanted to go with the safer bet, and so I see that the Democratic side.
No. Yeah. He was taken out. I mean, Hillary's got quite a gang.
That's what I mean. You know, yeah, and I mean us being, you know, the Democratic convention. You know, they very much knew who they wanted there, because they anticipated people were going to be, you know, just sold on the package. You know?
No, I think they all have files in hidden places, and they're afraid that those files will be released if they don't vote a certain way. And, they're all as corrupt as
Very possible.
They all are, and so they all have dibs on one another. I don't know. My whole assessment of American or Canadian politics is pretty low. So
I agree.
I never get a good
mine is very low as well.
Whatever I think is being the worst case scenario, it usually ends up to be even worse than that. So
yeah, for me, it's always been, how do we? I do believe in universal health care. I do have family members who are alive because of universal health care that would actually be dead if there wasn't that. I do agree with having taxation. I do agree with the imperfect system of government, but I ultimately feel that the only way the government is going to work is if we are self-reliant. And I don't just mean in our politics, I mean in our personal actions. If we are not at least sourcing the majority of our food locally, then just that alone is going to be enough of a cycle of events that we empower within our life, that it's impossible to have a balanced system, I believe, that's based on getting your needs met globally. I don't think that can happen, and I think as much as there is the overlords, those overlords were manifesting through us being dependent on other people. Ultimately, for all effective purposes, adolescent and more likely juveniles. We are juveniles in a real sense. And then we get angry at our parents for doing things the way that they want to do it. We have to make our needs met. And yes, there's a political fight to fight, but I always think it's a two-tiered system. Our lifestyle needs to be rectified, and we need enough energy after that lifestyle is satisfied to stand up to to the powers that be in a relentless long-term fashion. So I think both need to happen. What do you think?
Well, definitely, this seems to be a big polarity between you and I, where you take a view of the individual's health, and I'm taking a view of the collective's politics, just in terms of time and attention and assessment. And I think what you just brought up is one of the problems, is that 50% of people in Vancouver live in a one-bedroom apartment and don't see anybody. And this was brought up by somebody who was saying why the community didn't come out to the Sunshine Coast and protect the trees is because they don't give a crap about the trees, is because they're alone in their apartment and they don't give a crap about anything. And so the world has been divided and conquered. We are in a state where we're not meant to feel empowered. We're not meant to feel as if we can go out and give that everything you said that we have to save the world, because we can barely survive on our own and we feel like shit anyway. And so why should we go do anything? And meanwhile, our mind is so distracted by all the other diversions around us that we can't hold our mind on the target long enough to understand who and what is really creating this larger oppression that we live within. And so it's quite a struggle to get people to pay attention to such things when their own lives aren't that good.
Yes, or not really at stake that they can feel. We underappreciate the need to have people physiologically invested in a problem. There are so many mental images of problems, but they never get into the body. And we have reached a place now where our body is not registering much of anything new. And it's not, that's just the first stage. The second stage is actually feeling dissatisfied and feeling motivated to go do something. And so that takes, and why I keep bringing it back to the body or bringing it back to health is that I see that people are not in a place where they are even registering that these are problems in the first place in a real way, because they are out of reality. What you said, they're in their houses alone, they're getting their little immediate needs met, if you give people, and this is what oppressors always knew, if you satisfied people's small immediate needs and you left them feeling in the short term satisfied, the majority of people are not going to do anything regardless of what you're doing in their backyard, because you feed a person and you have them out, you have them, you know, contained and content for days, you know. Yeah. So and it's very true, as Ralph Nader said, who as you probably know, he's the man that really lobbied the auto industry to bring in seatbelts, something so basic, but you know, the automobile industry came back and said, you know, oh, we will go bankrupt if we have seatbelts in cars. But he kept doing that. He kept doing that, and he won. He won a major shift in the automobile industry and saved countless lives. He said that if people spend half the time that the average bird watcher invests in their interest, if we invest it in politics, if we invest it in our advocacy work, then we will change the world and we will solve its political problems. So it's not an impossible amount, but it's getting people to a place where they're out of overwhelm enough that they actually start caring again.
Well, I think some sort of an inducement or incentive is necessary, and I think that a global game, Planetary Guardians, where everyone plays and they have a score, and they keep score on what they're doing, and then they get rewarded for that score. And so this game is the basis for how our species sort of takes back our planet from whoever it is that is creating such beastliness. Because I just can't get away from whether the fact or the idea that, let's say there's a specific group of people, and let's say some alien off-worlders or fourth dimensional beings, whatever it is, right? That they, with intention, are screwing with our whole species. This is a very different than it's just us as a species and we just can't do anything anyway. You know, is there some sort of parasitic entity that is playing us? And there seems to be a lot of evidence for that to me. And that discussion is the one I always want to bring up, because it's never brought up into many discussions when we're dealing with larger problems we're trying to face together. And then you get branded the conspiracy guy. And if you look at a guy like Alex Jones these days, who's getting, you know, 12 million views, I mean, the conspiracy people are now being looked upon as being more credible news sources than the normal media. So there's been a huge shift in the last few years even around where people are putting their attention for information. And so I think, go.
Just the most conservative people that I know, in having conversations, they are voicing very unusual or conservative they are confused to come through them in the midst of all of their opinion, in the midst of all of their worldview. People are addressing for themselves many influences within life. And for me, yeah, this is a part of the conversation, is what are the higher influences that could be influencing our subconscious or our overmind? Who are the, there are influences that affect us, everything from, from chemicals in the water. Why not there be spirits in the air that are influencing our mood, influencing our agendas, influencing our ability to care? In yoga, they say that there are several levels of affliction, pains, causes of pain. One of them is personal. One of them is societal. One of them is God, or kind of more fate related. And we have to be able to do what we can with each of them, knowing that we also have to bear the discomfort of living in those environments where there are things that are affecting us that we don't have immediate right now influence of. And but we have to seek to have intuition around our place in that, and keep motivated, keep working, doing the best we can to show up, even when we realize that there are other influences beyond ourselves that are influencing a situation, you know, the mood, you know, the spirit of a situation. Yeah, which I think is one of the most influential parts of a situation, is the general mood or spirit.
So I think we're coming to the end of perhaps the first episode of the Yogi and the Wizard, a little chat about life. And so thank you, Yogi Shambu, for sharing your knowledge here with me. And we look forward to doing this again with you soon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I always love our conversations, and thank you to the School of Conscious Communication as well.